All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Long Toss. This is episode 30 here. I'm Scott Belford, and this is the Walkoff. Now, of course, Adam Mack, best co-host in the biz, is normally right here with me running the ship, but he's off being a good dad right now. He's got hockey evaluations for his daughter, so I am at the helm here. Thank you to all of our panelists. Of course, we'll introduce all of you four very quickly here. We are going to have a late attendee, and Lewis Foster's joining us probably 15-20 minutes. So, as always, Long Toss is brought to you by Out Hustle My Yesterday, Oh My Apparel, which is sports apparel made right here in Calgary, Alberta. Canadian-made, Canadian-based, ships all over the country. And they're looking after the little guy, too. It's pretty cool that they're giving Adam and I, a couple boneheads here, money every month to sponsor the show. So truly appreciated there. You can use the code WALKOFF to get 14% off. Once we get more of you going to Oh My Apparel and checking them out, maybe we can get you that 15% off. All right, let's get into it. It is episode 30. So, of course, it could be the Ken Griffey Jr. Cincinnati Reds episode. Canadian Hall of Famer, Cubs pitcher Fergie Jenkins was number 30. Blue Jays big acquisition in 2020. Taijuan Walker was number 30. But I think we're going to roll out with the king of strikeouts and call the episode the Nolan Ryan episode. I think that's there's a lot of nodding going on, so we're all right with that. Garth, welcome back to the show, man. Thank you so much for being here. How was your weekend?
So it wasn't bad. Kind of a lazy one. Weather's been kind of garbage, so
Not too much fishing done this weekend.
No fishing done this weekend.
There you go. Jen, welcome back. Thank you. Our Iron Man, our Iron Woman, however you want to put it. How about you? How was your weekend?
Just gym and baseball.
Right? Same old. Joel, you're back, bud. You missed last week.
Yes, I did. It's nice to be back. It's nice to see human faces again.
You're busy making movies. You're a star now. That's right.
Not acting in movies, right? Let's get that straight. I don't have any aspirations to act and be a star, but yeah, I do have a little bit of stuff going on when it comes to the Red. So that's been fun.
And Connor, you're becoming more and more of a regular here. Welcome
Apparently.
back,
Yeah,
right?
Thanks for having me back. It's great to be back.
Excited to have you back. Okay, let's get right into it. Obviously, the last inning of this Baltimore Jays series was a tough one to handle. But all in all, if you kind of don't focus in too much and take a step back, not a bad homestand for the boys, finishing 5-3. Let's start with you, Joel. How did you feel coming out of this Orioles series?
Yeah, we were one inning away from a sweep, so that's as close as you can get to coming out of a series with 3 wins. And Romano, 19 times he's come in, he's locked it down with the 1-run lead. They were talking about that. It's an aberration, right? Him going to come out and let up that many runs, and also the Espinal where he was drawn off his position because of the runner that was in motion. That could have very well been the end of that inning. So, yeah, it's tough, but you take 2 out of 3 and you keep this momentum going.
Jen, I know Joel touched on it there with how Romano has been. This is just a bump in the road, right? We can't take anything away from this.
No, I don't think so. I mean, first of all, even the best pitchers or closers in the game are going to struggle every so often when they go out there. And, it was a bullpen game a couple days ago. Romano pitched yesterday. Like there's just, there's a number of different factors. I think that went into that clunker of an inning today.
Do you worry that one of the factors is that they have been piecing together maybe one too many bullpen days over this month of September? Or do you think that this is just, again, don't read too much into it?
Well, I sort of wanted to talk
a little of both, right?
Yeah, I want to talk about bullpen days when we get there and talk about the AL East race, to be honest. But I think there is concern over that. For Romano in and of itself, having one bad inning today, I don't think necessarily spells trouble moving forward.
Connor, that bottom of the ninth, still impressive they gave it a go, right?
Yeah, considering it was Felix Bautista, who nobody can ever hit, and he's hitting 103 consistently. And
that was insane, eh? 103? Yeah. Like, what are we doing now?
I mean, it like baseball is a game of inches. If George Springer hits that ball a little bit higher, it's a tie game. Mm-hmm. So like but they gave it a valiant effort. It was just too little, too late, I guess, at that point, which sucks. But we're still 6 games ahead of them. I'll take it. Like,
yeah. So let's turn our focus then, because this is part of, I think, the disappointment of that final inning. I mean, you look at the standings, the Jays still hold that number 1 wild card spot. Although when we woke up this morning, looking up, you see the New York Yankees only 4.5 back, and of course you watch them take that 4-1 deficit in the 3rd inning or whatever I think it was against the Brewers today. You start counting all these eggs that are hatching and the chickens that are coming, and now we're right back to where we were 2 days ago. Garth, do you think that the Yankees are legitimately still catchable?
Unless Aaron Judge tears an ACL, probably not. Like, did you see what he did today?
Yeah.
He's the only guy in the StatCast era that had 5 barrels in one game. He crushed everything today. Like, he should have had 3 home runs. His double was just an absolute laser. I don't really think they're catchable. But
what's funny too is I even put on the list of stuff to talk about today that Judge hadn't hit a home run in 5 days, and Ohtani's been so good, and what if he actually doesn't break the record? And then of course,
you cursed it. You hit
I really cursed it, absolutely. But he's been unreal.
I don't think we're going to be able to catch them, but they're definitely not invincible. Like in May, like every team in the league, even the Dodgers, were just like, man, maybe this is the Yankees' year. But they're still an old team. They're still a slow team. Their pitching is a little suspect. But, I mean, like if Aaron Judge is going to go 4 for 5 every game, hitting bombs everywhere, like, I don't know. Just, I mean, I guess you could just walk them every at bat, but they're not untouchable. But I don't think we're going to win the division.
Is there a team in this league that anyone fears more than Houston?
Dodgers?
American League. Yeah, no.
Yeah, no. Houston's really put together. Like they have a legit World Series caliber team. They have starting pitching. Like their top 3 to going into a series is awesome. Their bullpen's awesome. 1 through 9, there's not an easy out. I think they're probably the best constructed team in the AL, but I mean, we've seen the best constructed team in the National League for the last 12 seasons only win 1 World Series. So,
because I know, Jen, you tweeted probably about 2 weeks ago, maybe it was a week and a half, that you just didn't care who the Jays played in this first round of the wild card because it doesn't matter. Whoever they get past, they're going to need to get through the next team anyways. So when you start doing the math, and as we look at it right now, the Blue Jays hold the number 1 wild card spot and would face the Rays, which would line them up to play Houston in the division series. Now, does anyone here want to jump in and talk about, would you rather play Houston for 5 games in the division series, or would you rather the Jays fall to that 3rd wild card and then face them for 7? Like, does it stem to reason that the Jays might actually have a better chance against them in a 5-game series?
It's all a matter of matchups with the pitching, because I think if the Astros go 7 deep as far as starters are concerned, in my opinion, like they just called up another guy, Hunter Brown, that came up a couple days. He's disgusting. And with the Blue Jays, it's a matter of 3.5 pitchers right now, because if Barrios is the half, if he's Good Barrios, it's 4. If it's bad Barrios, you just chalk a game up to the Astros. And even then, you can still lose for it. I wouldn't be surprised if the Jays won that series, but I wouldn't be surprised either if they got swept. So it didn't really matter.
Joel, if you had your choice, would you rather play the Astros for 5 games or 7?
I think shorter series makes more sense there. Because like Connor said, Houston's running out, Framber and Verlander and Christian Javier, and like their arms are rather endless in the starting rotation. And do you want to roll the dice on having to give up a Barrios game, right? Like in a situation where you're able to do, a short series where like we're talking about running. You're talking about like probably running out a pitcher on 3 days rest in that situation and just going for broke with your big 3 guns. But probably like Houston is really, really well put together, and it really does
look so good.
Yeah. And Dodgers over there, but anything can happen. I think 3 games is trying to win 3 as opposed to 4 would be a little bit easier for us in this situation, because
like I look at it and I have a hard time not thinking if they can get out of the wild card and they're playing the Astros, if they beat the Astros, the Yankees in a 7-game series doesn't scare me. I'm not saying that I'm like, oh yeah, the Jays are going to walk all over the Yankees in an ALCS that lines up that way. But if the Jays get past the Yankees in the division series and need to play Houston, I'm a lot less comfortable.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I'm thinking bullpen fatigue.
Right?
In these series. That's what I'm thinking. And I'd rather have Houston for 5 games in a 5-game series in that situation.
And honestly, knowing how we've played against Garrett Cole since Foreign Substance, he's like 0-4 against us with an ERA above 6. I would look forward to playing him twice, then Verlander twice, who's no-hit us multiple times. And so, yeah.
And I know you all touched on it here, so let's kind of refocus what we're talking about and shine the light on Jose Barrios, because I know Adam and I were going over Kevin Gausman's numbers since the All-Star break in our Friday episode of the Walkoff, and he has been surprisingly bad. He's got a 4.24 ERA since the All-Star break. He's got an over 5 ERA over his last 7 starts. Jose Barrios' numbers have been substantially better over his last 7 starts, even though when you watch the game, he scares the crap out of all of us, right? Like even this last game, he allowed 2 runs, 6 innings, but it was at the amount of times where I was tugging at my collar just like, huh. So this does set up an interesting question of, do you just continue to act like you have the confidence in Kevin Gausman to be that number 2? Or do you actually think the Blue Jays management and the organization, when it comes to the analytics side of things, have the guts? We watched them in 2020. Remember, start Robbie Ray in that game 1 instead of Ryu. Do you think they have the guts to do something wild with their pitching setup in the playoffs and go Ross Stripling in game 2? Maybe push it to a Gausman on a short leash and Barrios in the bullpen? Like, how do you match up, and do you think it's ridiculous that Ross Stripling could actually pitch game 2? Go ahead and take it, anyone who has a thought here.
No, I don't think it's ridiculous. I think, like, different looks is always important with pitching. You don't want to throw out similar starters 3 games in a row. And I think having Manoah, then Stripling, then Gausman, I think that just, it gives your starting pitching a different look. It's just, I think like Gausman and Barrios, or Gausman and Manoah, are, I don't want to say they're similar. They're not, but they're a lot more similar, And
they are.
Stripling's more of that 5-pitch old school pitcher, the wicked changeup. He'll throw a curve in there. Like his last start, he was throwing curves in to steal the first strike. I think having 2 guys that can get up to like 97, 96, 97, and then having like Stripling in the middle, I think that just gives an added little wrinkle. And I'm not saying that Stripling's a better pitcher than Gausman. I don't think that at all. but I think it might just throw off the batter's timing a little bit more. So I don't think it's ridiculous to put him in the 2-hole in a playoff series.
Jen, do you believe in going with the hot hand?
I do. And, I think it depends on what team you're playing and how it lines up. I think it depends on obviously whether or not you can line up line up the pitchers going into any series, because we don't know what this last week is going to look like right yet for the Jays, in terms of, must win games and seeding and all of that. And I agree with what Garth is saying, having the different look in Stripling in between. And then that does set up, if we're talking about a 5-game series, that does set up Gausman, to be the guy going on the mound, either in a potential elimination game or a potential must, to close it out. Right. So
who's pitched in big games before.
Right. Exactly. And so that's not a bad idea. And to be honest, I think anything is possible with this particular, like with Schneider. I don't think anything's off the table.
I was going to say, we were talking about it at the beginning of the year because I was like really, I was really depressed about losing Ray and putting money in Kikuchi, Barrios, and Gausman when Ray was going out of town, right? I was like, that guy won a Cy Young for us. Why? And there was a lot of reasons why. But we always argued about Gausman and Ray. And what happened last year in San Francisco was that after the All-Star break, the same thing happened to Gausman. He went from absolutely lights out ERA in the like $1.60s in the first half of the season. Second half of the season, San Francisco was like pushing back his starts and kind of worried about starting him in the postseason, where he went from absolute ace contending for the Cy Young to they're worried about when his start comes along in postseason. So it's a similar situation this year where he was absolutely lights out first half, comes into the second half of the season and those numbers start to spike. And so I feel like, if that carries on, why aren't you starting Stripling, who's been incredibly consistent all years, especially when he got moved into that starting into the rotation. So
and it's proved he can go that third time through the rotation.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah. And so I feel like it's a very viable option that he would be 2 in this scenario right now. Gausman is incredible on the road this year, so that's something to think about. Like, he is a different pitcher when he's away and when he's home. It's like if your situation is he's starting game 2 at home, no. If he's starting game 2 on the road, then I'm for Gausman starting game 2 on the road. But I would probably start Stripling game 2 at home.
I feel the same way. Stripling game 2, I really feel strongly about that. I know that going to the YouTube comments here, Christopher Oliver says, you can't, in capital letters, concern yourself with matchups at this time. You just go out each game and you end up where you end up. I don't like this let's play for the 3rd seed talk that you've been hearing amongst Jays fans. And I think all of us are kind of on the same page with that, right? Like, this isn't the time to start trying to do the math as to which wild card team you line up best with. Connor?
No, it's obviously no, you can't do that because it's no matter what, you're going to play a good team unless you consider Cleveland a bad team or whoever comes out of the AL Central a bad team. You're always going to play a good team. But I think, like, as far as getting like wanting your proper seed, I think for the Blue Jays, if I'm their magic number to make the playoffs is 11. So it's not that like clinch a playoff spot. So it's 11. If they get that within the next week or so, I think then you have to think about where do you want to match up. But if you can't, just play and win the games. Just go out there and just go balls to the wall and win as many as you can. Like,
so we watched Romano for the first time since I think it was August 21st blow a save. Even look like he struggled at all because he has just been absolutely dominant over the last about month of play here. And I know that bullpen over usage is a concern. And so let's get into it because this bullpen has been absolutely one of the most dominant pens in baseball since about the trade deadline, since Anthony Bass joined the crew and we watched Romano kind of step it up. Jimmy Garcia has seemed to find another level in the last 2 months or so. Joel, when you look at this bullpen, what is your biggest concern? And do you think that there's a way around the overusage?
My biggest concern is going to be always wherever Yusei Kikuchi is. So he's in the bullpen right now, but that's not. I'm not being serious there. I feel like what you want to do is for bullpen usage. You going into those, going into the postseason, everybody's got to be, as best as they can be for going into the postseason. But well, the thing that I want to say is that if you can get consistent starting is always going to be the best thing for a bullpen, right? So when you want your bullpen to do well, you really just hope that your starters can go out there, eat up as many innings as possible, and put those guys in the best possible positions for them to be in, right? Not we don't want to see Romano having to get 5 outs. We don't want to have to see like a little bit extra from those guys. Trevor Richards coming in today was nice. Like he has been incredibly inconsistent lately. So if he can come in and he can eat up innings and just pitch consistently over the last 2-3 weeks of the season, that'd be nice. If Julian Merriweather can pull himself together for the last 2 weeks of the season, that would be a great, addition to this bullpen, having the stuff that he possesses and knowing that, anytime he can be out for 6 months, one start could be, but that's kind of it.
How's your confidence with Tim Meza at this point?
Well, he's you're
not where you're at in 2021, right? But you're feeling all right, or what are you thinking?
I'm feeling okay with him, but it's been tough for him health wise this season, and but it's him and Romano who have been probably our two most consistent arms throughout the season. So I don't know. I like Meza. What else really do we have for lefties? So we're going to go to Kikuchi. We're going to put our faith there.
My big concern with sorry,
go ahead, Garth.
No, go ahead, Garth.
My biggest concern is, say we're in game 1 of the wild card and Manoah doesn't have it, and we're down 4-0 after 1. He gets in trouble in the second. We don't have a long man. We have a bunch of 1-inning guys. Some guys can do 2, but we don't have Ross Stripling in the pen. And that's my big concern, because like your starters in the playoffs cannot have that leash. You cannot let them try to work out of jams. If you're down 4 runs, you need to stop that shit at 4 runs. Mm-hmm. You can't let it get to 5 or 6, because then, you're not going to score off of these good teams in the playoffs. You're not going to put up 10 runs. So that's my big concern with, like, we don't even have a guy like in AAA that we feel confident to bring up for the postseason. We don't have a long man, and that concerns me in the playoffs, because you have no margin for error. And if our starters aren't good, we're probably going to lose that game.
That's something I was thinking about earlier today. Actually, I was thinking about that R.A. Dickey start in, the looks on your faces. That I was there for that. And I was thinking about that start, and if that were to happen, and let's be honest, again, any pitcher can go out and have a bad day. Who would come in that situation? Stripling out of the bullpen. I mean, he's been gold as a starter. There's nothing, I'm not saying anything in regards to him being a starter. I think he saved the Jays season, right? Quite frankly. But having to move him to the starting rotation and not having somebody who could fill that role is to this team's detriment. And we all know how I feel about the deadline. But that's where we're at. And Mitch White got absolutely rocked with the Bisons today. Absolutely rocked. 5 innings, 9 hits, 8 earned runs. And
having a starting pitcher get knocked out early in the playoffs, that it screws up your bullpen for the next game.
It really does.
There's like that whole snowball effect. and we don't have that guy that can come in and just mop up innings. You know,
the only guy who can come in and mop up innings really is Yusei Kikuchi in terms of just being able to give the number of pitches.
But we might as well put a fucking slow ball pitcher out there if we're gonna do that. You know what I mean? Like he cannot be on the playoff roster. He just can't.
No,
like him wasting a roster spot in the playoffs that's not acceptable.
I mean, it has been impressive how this team has put together bullpen days over the last couple weeks, because their bullpen days have not been that awful. They've won a couple games in these times. And every time that it is a scary moment, it is a Yusei Kikuchi moment, right? Where you're just like, we've got nobody else. He's got to eat 3 innings. And this is where they've kind of got themselves into a little bit of a pickle, because really the guy who should be in the pen as their long man and dependable man right now is Ross Stripling, and it just hasn't played out that way this season. So Joel, when you look at this, and it's funny because in the YouTube chat here, we're getting mentions of Stripling being in the bullpen would have been nice. Max Castillo is being brought up right now, because there is no depth when it comes to the long man. So Joel, do you think that they start pushing guys like Merriweather, or even do we see Trent Thornton back on this team to eat innings in the last week or 2 of the season?
That's a possibility. Like Jen said, I think there was that initial hope that Mitch White's 3.70 ERA coming over was somehow going to hold up, and that just didn't pan out. And we're still sitting here on the 18th of September waiting for Nate Pearson to rear his head and do something, right? And my God, would it be lovely, just 5 games, 6 games right at the end, just, hey, I'm here. Yeah. I'm alive. I have a heartbeat. I can get you a couple of outs, because
I will let you finish your thought here, but I just did want to mention that Nate Pearson is still eligible for this playoff roster, by the way, even though he hasn't been reinstated onto the 40-man roster. There is a rule that if you're on the 60-man IL, that you automatically have that shot of coming back into the playoffs. So Nate Pearson is a legitimate option. Now, he's in AAA currently with the Bison. They've been limiting him to about 20 pitches per outing. Is this where we're actually at? We're giving Nate Pearson a chance in late September after not pitching all year long, Jen?
I honestly don't even want to hear his name unless he's actually coming into a game. That's where I'm at.
No, it's fair. Yeah. It's very fair.
We're all there.
Yeah.
We're all there, Jen. I'm sorry. We're all there with Julian Moore too. I get it. He's Voldemort.
Like, I'm just so sick to death of the Nate Pearson updates, right? As if he's going to contribute in a meaningful way. Maybe he will. Maybe he will come and throw gas for 20 pitches out of the bullpen. Yay! I don't.
He's only hitting 98, like,
right?
Only. I mean,
but it's just you can't put your faith in somebody who hasn't done anything whatsoever this season, and bless him, and the injuries and the mono and all of that.
But what do we do? We're talking about Julian Merriweather and Trent Thornton right now.
Yeah. You know what we do? We sign a starting pitcher at the trade deadline.
None of us said that. If only one of us had spoken up.
Yeah, if only somebody would have shouted that out.
Oh, man. Oh, we're screwed.
Yes. Lewis, welcome to the show, bud.
I'm a bit late.
Hey, no problem at all. Everybody, welcome Lewis Foster back to the Long Toss. He's been busy pitching all summer, so it's been a month or so since we've had him on, but thanks for making time, bud.
No worries. Glad to be on.
We're all in a group panic about the bullpen and overusage and the lack of a legitimate long man. Anything to add on what you're seeing out of this bullpen, which has been phenomenal, but do you worry about overusage?
Well, they better be ready for the playoffs. That's my only worry. But they've been doing great under the circumstances. So I'm not terribly worried, but I'm not sure if the one wild card is going to hold up with how much we're using them.
I'll just
go ahead, Jen.
Sorry, I'll just say this. Since So since the trade deadline, okay, the Jays are 25-19. I think if we count today's loss, I think they're 25-19 since the deadline. Which is great. They've gained ground on the Yankees, which is also mostly due in part to the Yankees collapse. And, they've been able to make their way up into that first wild card spot. And all of that is really, really good. But in those games, 13 of those games have been started by either Kikuchi, White, or has been a bullpen day. And the Jays are 4-9 in those games. They are 21-10 counting today in all other games started by anybody else. So those bullpen / Kikuchi / White games have definitely had an impact. 4-9, you take even 9 of those losses, and let's not even be overly optimistic. Let's turn just 3 of those 9 into wins. Right? If they had gotten a legitimate starter at the deadline, for example, things look quite different at this point. So,
and it's funny because I do want to just jump in here and say, I like the Mitch White deal. I liked everything the Jays did at the deadline. I just wanted another starting pitcher on top of that.
Right. So everybody thinks, or, I've been taken to task that, I didn't think Mitch White was a good pickup. He would have been a good pickup as a long man in addition to an actual starter, but they didn't get an actual starter. Mitch White was the actual starter, and that's the problem.
And let's not we put it on the trade deadline, but the moves should have been, the wheel should have been turning when Ryu went down.
Yeah.
And there was a big cushion there between that moment and the trade deadline, and to let all that time pass and not address that issue. I think it left a lot in the fan base.
It is kind of wild to look at some of the other top contending teams throughout baseball, and without a doubt, hitters and pitchers. The Blue Jays have the least amount of left-handers you could possibly run a lineup out there with. The lefties they do have as bats, and listen, I love what Kevin Biggio did in the 9th inning, taking that walk. Biggio has been great as a guy off the bench or a dude who's platooning amongst the team or amongst position players when they need a day off type of thing, or just to get an extra lefty in the lineup. But as soon as Ryu went down as well, look at the starting rotation, right? I mean, especially with Kikuchi being limited to just mop-up duties, there's no real lefties. Is this a concern going into the playoffs? Lewis, what are your thoughts on this? Because I know that when it comes to the hitters on this team, obviously they hit both lefties and righties quite well for a team that's all right-handed hitters. Obviously, we haven't watched the starting staff fall apart by any means because it's all righties, but does it concern you, the lack of lefties in general on this team?
Not really. We are going to face some teams in the playoffs that are going to be able to platoon. If we face the Rays, we're going to be facing G-Man Choi, a bunch of their guys. And the Blue Jays, their depth is mainly focused on defense, not offense, which I think is a good thing because at any given point, we can run an outfield in the 9th inning of Bradley, Zimmer, and Springer and Wright, which I'm not sure many teams can do. But, that offense just isn't quite there for those guys. Bradley does have some upside with his ability to hit fastballs, but then Tapi and Zimmer are, pretty lackluster up there. I think it's okay to go defense first, which, out of the bench is pretty good, but it all is, and we don't give Biggio enough credit. He has been so good. He has been so good.
Connor, go ahead and spew about Biggio. I can tell you just want to get going here because he has been good. And even touch on the bench because you know what? This Blue Jays bench, since Schneider has taken over as manager, has been utilized differently than we saw earlier in the season and has actually looked pretty good at times.
At times, it's very dependent. Well, first off, Kevin Biggio, great person. Love him. I loved him. I don't know why. He's a player I've liked just because, basically, even when he's been bad. But yeah, he's stepped it up a lot defensively. He's still taking his walks, which is great. And the bench as a whole, a lot of people, we were all kind of surprised when Jackie Bradley Jr. got signed, but he's actually been very valuable at making very casual catches that shouldn't be casual. and can hit a fastball, like Lewis said. And then Bradley Zimmer, he's back, can run like the wind, can't hit a lick on offense, but better defense than offense. And Whit Merrifield is like the big one for me there, because if he could just be 60% of Whit Merrifield from last season, he's an everyday player on this team. Like, because he led the league in hits last year. Like, he was one of the best. Not last year, but he was over the last like 3-4 years. He's been one of the best hitters in the league as far as average goes. And if he could do anything of that sort, this team would be 10 times better. But he can't. So
what's funny is even for a second there, I forgot about Whit Merrifield.
Yeah, he played today, and you forgot about him. That's
and I forgot about him. Yeah,
He's very forgettable.
Yeah.
So in the YouTube chat here, and it's so funny how this fan base is so divided on the Biggio subject. All ball 1-1 says, I hate Biggio. And did you guys see the clip of Bichette yelling at Vladdy? Did any of you see that?
Today?
I didn't see it.
I know there was one from like a couple months ago, but I don't know if there was anyone today.
I didn't see anything today.
All right. Well, we'll move along then. Maybe we're just being derailed here.
So one point about Biggio is that his defense is extremely underrated. At first base, he's been an average defender in his limited time, which is tough to do at first base because it all bounces out. But at second base, he has 6 outs above average. Espinal's at 10.
Wow.
So you have 2 above average second basemen that are both platoon pieces. Pretty valuable.
He's
very valuable.
Becoming Zobrist like.
One out above average in right field as well. So
yeah, infield, outfield, first base. I mean, you don't really want to.
You know what it is? I think it's so easy to remember how much he struggled at third base last year, and I think that's what muddies the water a little bit. But you're all correct. Like, Biggio has been, I'll just straight up say, phenomenal for the role he's playing right now. I don't think that there is a guy that they could go out and get who would fill that off the bench, versatile guy who could play any position role quite as well as we're seeing out of Biggio right now, especially with the fact he hits left-handed and fits into a very right-handed heavy order.
So many pitchers nowadays, carve up, dive for the corners. They don't really attack the middle of the plate outwards now. And if you throw 4 balls to Kevin Biggio, he takes the walk every time. Yeah. What I want to talk about with the lefty thing is I feel next year with the shift going away, lefties are going to be that much more valuable. I've said it from the beginning. I hate that we don't have that dominant lefty bat that throws that wrinkle into the pitcher's mind when we come up 1, 2, 3. You attack with fastballs up and sliders away to pretty much every single hitter on the lineup. You need that lefty who makes that righty throw his changeup away, or that lefty batter who makes the righty pitcher throw the changeup. And then next year, with the shift coming, lefties are going to be that much more valuable, thus making lefty pitchers that much more valuable. Okay, so to not be attacking that change in the game that's to come and those players becoming more valuable, it scares me. It scares me because what are we going to see lefties do now that you can't shift them? Now that they can blast that ball into the overly stacked defense that you put in front of them, they can just rip that ball, and where batting average is going to go next year. What's going to happen to lefty hitters? So the fact that that's not,
we joked about it. We joked about it last week on Long Toss of once they ban the shift and come 2024 when it's roll bumps, is Kevin Biggio a superstar? Yeah,
right? Exactly. When the robot umps come in and he's got the best chase rate in all of baseball.
And they can't shift on him. Yeah.
So what is he going to be worth when he's 29, 30 years old and the game has completely changed around him?
And Joel, to your point, as you were talking about the shift going away, I got 2 things out of it. The Blue Jays should sign Brandon Nimmo from the Mets and Joey Gallo.
Yeah. Exactly.
As much as we don't like Joey Gallo, can play great defense and can hit 30 home runs on a good day.
What's Gallo going to do? No shift.
I mean,
I want to say
40,
50 of his outs go to that second baseman who's playing 60 feet in the outfield, like just sitting there and catching that base hit that is going to be a base hit 45, 50 times next year. And that's going to drastically change who that guy is as a baseball.
Of course, they just legislated Joey Gallo into being a good player, and he's going to be.
Please change it. And they did.
Yeah.
I wanted to really quickly touch on this. We don't need to spend too much time because this is just a lot of speculation. We have actual stuff to talk about. But with how we've watched Matt Chapman progress as a Toronto Blue Jay and how much he has shored up the left side of the infield, what he has done at third base, which was such a defensive black hole in 2021. Now, listen, I know Aroldis Martinez is sitting in the weeds right now. He's 21 in Double-A. Maybe come 2024 when Matt Chapman is a free agent, he's ready to come up. You're putting a lot of eggs in one basket there. Do you think it is worth, as the front office of this Toronto Blue Jays, to reevaluate Matt Chapman and maybe talk to him about an extension? Or are we jumping the gun on even talking about this? Lewis?
Well, he only has one season left.
Yeah.
Like, it's not jumping the gun. I mean, you don't want to wait till he's a free agent to make him an offer.
28 years old.
He's 28 years old. I think he still probably has, another 5 prime years, like 33, 34. We'll probably see some decline, but he's
the shift ban will help him a little too, by the way.
Yeah, he's been shifted a lot. I guess it kind of depends on your faith in Orelvis. He is hitting bombs in the minors this year. Like, he is crushing, but big chase rate, lots of strikeouts.
Huge chase rate, yes.
He's the perfect Blue Jay.
He's
the perfect Blue Jay.
but I mean, Chapman doesn't hit for a high average either, but he'll take a walk. So
another thing to remember too, Garth, is that when it comes to Aroldis, he does play some left field, and both Lourdes and Teoscar are free agents also at the end of 2023. So maybe it is worth looking into signing a third baseman like Chapman long term.
I would not be against it. I think he's been great for the team. He's been a solid leader. Whenever you hear other Jays talk about him, they talk about him with like the utmost respect. Like, he is a well-respected dude in that locker room. Like, and it's not just because he's a veteran. It's because I think he's really embraced like the role of being the captain of the infield. I would not be against signing Matt Chapman long term. 3-4 seasons. I'm fine with that.
Extend him right away.
Yeah, I'll even push that. Like, I feel like a third baseman is going to be, I don't feel the defensive regression the way that I would a center fielder or a shortstop. I feel like his arm is always going to be lights out. I think about like guys like Scott Rowland and the ability that they have to play. Guys who are defensively that good at this age usually tend to have that defensive ability at third base to 35 to 36. So I'm not afraid of him suddenly depreciating in value all of a sudden. The batting average getting to 235 is honestly where I want to see. If he's batting 200, I'm like, nah, I don't want 200 Matt Chapman. 235 Matt Chapman, 30 home run Matt Chapman, platinum glove Matt Chapman at 28. You throw the contract that Oakland, that he turned down in Oakland 3 or 4 years ago. I feel like he would take that now at 28.
And I was just going to say that's another thing to keep in mind about Matt Chapman is that as good as he is and as defensively sound as he is and as much power as he has, he's not a 10-year guy. He's not going to get that crazy term. You're probably getting Matt Chapman for the DJ LeMahieu deal, 6 years, $90 million. That's probably a fairly good comparable contract to look at. And if you're locking up a guy like Matt Chapman from 28 till 34, I mean, I'm fine with it. Does anyone is there anyone in the group here who feels like maybe we should, because when I look at this team, I actually view Matt Chapman as the guy that should be pursued the most in free agency or in the off season here, even though everyone's talking Vladdy and the fact that he's open to an extension. I think the most likely candidate to be extended is Chapman. Thoughts, everybody? Connor, where are you at?
I do agree. I think he's the most likely, or should be the most like heavily sought after person. And this might be a little bit of a hot take. I think the Blue Jays let Teoscar Hernandez go. I don't think and it's not because they don't want him. It's because I don't think they're going to pay him enough.
I see that too.
Like,
Do you think they move
because
him in the offseason, or do you think they just hold on to him and let him go to free agency?
I would have said no, but it's something they've looked into doing before. They
Yeah.
looked into doing it last season with Pablo Lopez. So it wouldn't be a shock to me if Teoscar Hernandez wasn't on this team next year. And even more so, it would be less of a shock if he was gone in free agency because, yeah, he's had a down season, but he's still a 2-time Silver Slugger with 30 home run power, can hit nearly 300. You're going to tell me
So you trade him. That's what you're saying.
I don't want to lose Teoscar. Just let me say that right now. But if I am going to lose him, trade him so you get something as opposed to like I was saying. There's some team out there that's gonna pay him. They can get past the defensive inability because you could probably DH him now, and like with universal DH, that's the thing. And he becomes a lot more valuable to other teams, and I think he becomes less valuable to the Blue Jays because the outfield is, I think, one of the easiest places for them to add another left-handed bat, and probably on the cheaper. And like we were saying earlier, Brandon Nimmo of the Mets, he would be perfect for this team. You could stick him near the top of the order. He's a left-handed bat that could play center field. You could take George out of center if you want to on a more permanent basis. He takes his walks. He can run. He's improved drastically in center field. So I think the outfield's the easiest place to look. And Matt Chapman would be the easiest to bring back as far as the money goes.
Compelling on the YouTube chat here is agreeing with everything you're saying, Connor. Basically, they say if you can trade Teo this offseason for a solid starter or a lefty bat, you got to do it.
Yeah.
Lourdes, where are you at on Teoscar? And do you think it's more likely that Lourdes is moved on from, being that he is by far the most financially attractive of the two on the trade market?
Lourdes and Teo, I don't know. I really don't know. It's honestly a coin toss between who I trade because they both put up the same amount of value different ways, and one's cheaper, one's more expensive, one's better, one's slightly worse. Trading from your corner outfield opens up a really interesting opportunity for the Blue Jays. I don't think Atkins has ever done something like that. Like, he's never traded a proper major league talent player in the middle of a contending team. Like, it's such a tough thing to do. But if there is an opportunity to move Teo for plus Moreno, plus someone else for Pablo Lopez for a really good starter, and then go and get Nimmo for something like the Starling Marte deal, like 80 million or something, I think it's risky, but there is a massive opurtunity to take advantage of.
It does great things for the future. Like, you're going to have to move Springer out of center field. You need to, lower the load that's put on him. And I feel like there's, when you compare Lourdes to Teo, everything that Connor said about the mantle that Teoscar has with the Silver Sluggers, the All-Stars, the 35 home run power, all of that stuff is so much more craved on the free agency market, where Lourdes kind of flies under the radar. We've watched him get better defensively in the outfield. We like that contact style hitter, when you've got guys who are so swing and miss. Like, I feel like the value that Lourdes brings, and then
he's like the little bit of offensive diversity this team even has.
Yeah. And so I totally agree. It's really heartbreaking to move one of Vladdy's friends, any one of Vladdy's friends that makes him smile and hugs on him. You feel bad to move that guy, but to be able to bring in another piece and then move the pieces that we have, like, you just have to be able to get Springer a little bit less time. Like, he plays center field so kamikaze that you need to just kind of say, well, can you go over to left a little bit? Can you go over to right and just cool your jets, because we need you to play a little bit more.
Can anyone here remember a player? I was just going to say, can anyone here remember a player laboring more consistently than George Springer? Like, man, every single play he's holding an elbow, or he's like limping a little, or just
it's beautiful and scary. It's beautiful and scary, right? You love to see it, but you wince with him every single time he goes into a wall, or when he got beamed today. You're like, what? He doesn't know he's got two bad arms. It's. But
yeah, I tweeted after he got hit. I was like, I don't know what kind of duct tape the Jays are using on Springer, but I'd buy some of that shit.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I don't know how he's.
Well, I loved watching him. well, no, I didn't love watching it, but I mean, we all watched him get hit on the opposite elbow in today's game. And then they're talking like, are they going to remove him from the game? And then no, he just comes back with like more armor. Like they're just like, oh, they've upgraded his elbow pad. It's like, this is how he's yeah. Who knows how injured the man actually is? Like it's impressive to watch.
It's like the NHL playoffs, and after the season's over, you're just going to see 8 different injuries with him. Like,
yeah, he's going to have 2 surgeries done, and we're going to be like, what?
He'll probably get surgery on his elbow. There's no way there isn't something wrong with it.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get into a topic here. We've all brought a topic to the table here. And I'm going to be really greedy. I'm going to jump right in with my topic first, and then we'll talk to Jen and see what she has. But I feel so bad for Pittsburgh Pirates fans, and I just want to talk about the Pirates real quickly here. I don't know if you guys watched that play last night where Brian Hayes is playing third base, and I forget who it was on the Mets, was running around third base. Yeah, there we go. And during the play, they literally caught it on camera and rewound it and were like, holy crap, look at this. So Brian Hayes is sitting there with his glove off in the middle of play, by the way, reaching into his back pocket and eating spits. We watched Rodolfo Castro slide into third base just a couple weeks ago and his cell phone slide out of his pocket. Listen, I know that young players need time to develop. We've just watched it happen here with the Blue Jays. But if you're a Pittsburgh Pirates fan, is this getting a little embarrassing? At some point, do these young players need to be sat down and be like, listen, you're still on TV, even though it feels like no one's watching in the stands? Like, can you act like you're a part of the baseball game going on? Does anyone want to jump in here?
I can't attribute that to youth and inexperience, to be honest, because that's just utterly absurd. I don't think that's something they could have gotten away with in AAA, their cell phone flipping out of their pockets and, and not wearing their glove while a play is going on. Like, I just
eating spits,
right? Like it doesn't even make sense that they would think this was acceptable at any level of play, let alone the major league level. So I don't think it has anything to do with youth or inexperience. It's just whether it's a lack of respect for the team that they're playing for, or I don't even know. Like, I have absolutely no idea, but that
Lewis, I would love to hear your opinion here. You've over the last year, you've starting to get some national recognition as a pitcher in Canada, which is freaking awesome. You've played on lots of teams over the last, competitive teams over the last few years. Have you on your own team seen this sort of tomfoolery, for lack of a better word?
Never seen it before. I played with some absolute jags though, so yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they did it, but I wasn't too offended by what Brian Hayes did. I was like, okay, I thought it was kind of cool, but that was just my little opinion.
Sometimes you just gotta have spits.
Man, I would love to have Jeff Fry on here today.
Old man Fry would be furious. Yeah.
If Jeff Fry was on here talking about this topic, we might as well just like sit back and let him go for half
Where's the
an
popcorn?
Because like that, it's unacceptable. Like, I know they don't have anybody else to play at third base, but Brian Hayes, like, I'm benching him not just for that game and the next game. I'm probably like, fuck it, sit him out a full series. They're not going to win anything anyway. Who cares? Make a point that shit is unacceptable on a Major League Baseball team.
Joel, would you sit one of the Pirates if you watched that happen?
Okay, so what's Vladdy, 22?
Yes, just turned 23 now. Yeah,
23 now.
They were talking about him and like stealing third base the other day, and like how he gave himself the green light, and that was all him, like deciphering the pitcher's move and not being checked on and stealing third base. He's 22. Brian Hayes is 25. right? Like, you want to chalk it up to youth, or you want to chalk it up to you're not taking any plays off. You're not taking any every year. Like I use Vladdy as an example because when I see him take a lead, he checks everybody. He's 6'2", 250. He's not a base running threat, but he's up there. His mindset is, I'm Ricky Henderson, and I'm going to take the next base, and I'm going to be incredibly into it. Even though, and he's got, the reason I bring him up is because he's got all the personality and the happiness and the flair that you want to see the next generation have. But you can tell that he's seemingly in on every single play, right? So there's
okay,
a
let's flip this a second.
Yeah.
What are your guys' thoughts? Would you ever see this on the Yankees?
Oh, Jesus, no, like, that's not.
You'd see it, but there'd be repercussions.
Yeah, like, that's what I'm saying, is that,
Yeah.
you know, the
Regardless of how
clouds
terrible though the Pirates are,
lightning.
you're a professional ball player. And absolutely I would bench a guy for doing that, because you have to gain control of your team, right? As a manager, you have to gain control of your team. And if you don't have the veterans to do it, then you have to be the one to step in and do it. Absolutely. Your ass is riding the bench, and your ass is riding it tomorrow. And we'll maybe talk about the next day. Maybe.
Yeah. It also, in Brian Hayes' case, it doesn't help that he got paid in the offseason. Paid for Pittsburgh anyway.
Yeah.
I think it was like 7 years, 70 million, which is a bargain. But it doesn't help that he got paid and he's doing it. Meanwhile, he's sitting next to O'Neal Cruz, freak of nature, who's like, you're really taking plays off, and I'm out here hitting 111 mile an hour pitches off of DeGrom. Like, it's, yeah. Brian, I wasn't as
He's
offended.
supposed to be a leader on that team.
He is like him and Brian Reynolds, which granted it's him and Brian Reynolds, but like I wasn't as offended as most people was about the Brian Hayes thing, but it's like, you can't do that. Like, it's just the thing that you couldn't do. I was more like concerned with the Rodolfo Castro one. Like, there's a difference between you eating seeds in the middle of a play that, granted, play's not near you at all, but like, be ready. But in the Rodolfo Castro
But be ready. Have your glove on.
Have your glove on. Like, be ready. You have an other hand that you can go in your pocket and get seeds, and so have your glove on. But the Rodolfo Castro one is, he had his phone in his back pocket the entire day.
Mm-hmm.
And before running out there, didn't think, oh, my phone's still in my pocket. Let me not take it out and put it in the clubhouse. And I'll slide head first and have my phone, a beautiful white iPhone, I think it was, just drop on the floor. And then I love how the umpire's like, okay, look, there's your phone. There's a phone there. And he picks it up and tries to give it to the third base coach. He's like, dude, I'm not getting suspended for you. Like, this isn't my fight. You go ahead and you get suspended because you clearly didn't understand the rules. Like, it's just
So, legitimate question here, and Lewis, I know you're a little bit more lenient on the whole Brian Hayes thing and what's going on in Pittsburgh. Do you think that if the Pirates were in a situation where they're maybe fighting it out for a wild card spot, would you, like, I guess my question is, would you see this on a winning team? Or do you think that this is just happening because it is the Pirates?
I mean, if I saw it on the Jays, I'd be upset. But Brian Hayes knows the situation. He's on the Pirates, which is sad. He's going to win the Gold Glove this year. He knows the play is not going to go to him, and he's just eating seeds. I'm okay with it.
The Pirates are 55 and 92.
Like I'd eat seeds too.
That question is kind of flawed. You said, would that happen on a winning team?
I wouldn't-
No, because
well, it wouldn't.
players on fucking winning teams are engaged in the play.
Yeah.
That's
if
like,
it happened.
You know,
Yeah.
like
I don't think-
you're not going to see Matt Chapman eating seeds during a
No.
game.
And to Greg's point, I don't even think Brian Hayes would do that in like May of this year. But it's the middle, like
Yeah.
he's not going to do that in like April, May, June. It's the middle of September. They're nearly 40 games under 500. Like they're last place in the very
Well, then
mad
stay
division.
home. Stay home. Like if you can't stay engaged at work for 3 hours a day, then what the fuck are you doing, man? Like
Still
and
making
I'm
his
not
10.
some old. I'm not like I don't want to
No.
be the Jeff Fry on this show. I'm not an old school guy. But I mean, like, it's your job.
Was this yesterday or the day before?
I think it was the day before. Like it started all coming out like yesterday because the Mets post game guys just decided, oh, let's rewind and zoom in enhance on his hand with no glove. Like,
Yeah,
I mean, there are other teams that are also terrible, and you don't see that going on as
yes,
well,
that's
right?
true.
yes.
So
the only reason I brought it up as the topic is just that we've seen this sort of thing happen a couple times on the Pirates, whereas you haven't seen it with any other team this year in baseball, or at least not pointed out like this has been pointed out. But we can move on from here. Did anyone have anything else to add on this?
I was just gonna say,
Okay.
like 5 years from now, the players are gonna have their phones in the on deck, and they're gonna be live streaming. You know, it's gonna, they're gonna have things like hanging off of them, and they're gonna be like the phone's gonna be coming up with them, and it'll be
They're
hanging off
they're
them
live
some
streaming
way.
and put GoPros on their helmets.
Yeah,
Like,
that's 5 years from now. It's like these guys will be, ahead of their time. These guys will be, that's we'll
So
see.
Dalchmerist in the YouTube chat says it would be amazing if one of the Pirates had hot dogs in their back pockets and ate one of those between batters.
Better than Tim
don't
Raines.
make suggestions to them.
Yeah, don't make suggestions. They're
Yeah.
40 games under 500. All right, let's do one more topic and then we'll get back into the show here. Jen, would love to hear what you brought to the table. I'm sure it's a multiple choice.
So we can either talk about that Vlad one-on-one interview and the timing of it, or we can talk about whether or not 62 home runs is just the AL record or the real record. So either one of those topics, which one would you like me to present?
Joel, do you
I'm
want to talk about?
I'm
Home runs?
all about the home run thing.
Yeah, Garth, let's start with you. I'd love to hear your opinion on this.
Okay. My golden era of baseball was the steroid era. I'm of that age. I was caught up with McGuire and Sosa and all that. The thing people seem to forget about that era is that pitchers use steroids too. Legitimately. And they're like, oh, these guys were all juiced. That's why they were hitting bombs. Man, Eric Gagne was like throwing, crazy heat. Roger Clemens, like the pitchers.
At 38, Roger Clemens was throwing crazy heat. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, to say that Bonds' 72 home runs isn't legitimate, like he was up there facing guys who were also using steroids. So 72 is the record. I don't give a shit what anybody says. It's going to be the American League record, and he's going to get it, and he's going to get it this week. But to just discount all of those numbers, then why is Major League Baseball still use it as the official record? If they're so horrified by what they did back in the 90s, then ban them all. But they didn't. They allowed that to happen. They were fine with it happening, and then when Congress got all up in arms, then all of a sudden, these are bad people. We have to shun them and make them pariahs in the baseball community. But hitting a home run is hard to do.
even with steroids.
Well,
Even with steroids.
the hand-eye coordination isn't helped by steroids, right? It's a power factor is helped,
Barry
but not the
Bonds
actual hand-eye
He hit
coordination to
longer
roll up
home
the ball.
runs. He hit longer home runs, but he still would have hit him.
Yeah, he hit him into the bay instead of into left field or right field, I should say.
His
Yeah.
plate discipline and the way he controlled the strike zone is unmatched. I never saw Ted Williams hit, but I can't imagine he was much fucking better than Barry Bonds.
I'm curious how, and there's no way to actually do this, but I am curious, taking steroids, who had the greater advantage, the pitchers or the hitters? If you could even possibly quantify or qualify that. Do you know what I mean?
It probably went player to player, right? It's
Yeah,
just
I'm very curious. If you took the top hitters and the top pitchers and gave them all steroids, who would benefit the most?
Look at the numbers of all the hitters that step below Barry Bonds. He was putting up, everyone's like, oh, he put up video game numbers. Yeah, and they were hundreds of points higher than every other player in baseball.
Yeah.
For the 15 years that Barry Bonds played with the Giants, his OPS plus was 199 for all 15 seasons. Like, his home run record is legitimate, and I'll go to the grave saying that.
I think that what Judge is doing is absolutely incredible, though. Lewis, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the historic season we're watching right now and where it really does sit in the baseball rankings of incredible things done.
Well, it might go down as one of the greatest offensive seasons of all time if you don't consider steroid juice seasons as much. I don't really know. What he's doing is insane. We're not giving enough respect to it.
Is it more impressive that he's doing it without steroids versus what, say, Bonds did with steroids?
I don't know, because WRC plus unfortunately doesn't account for steroid use. So right. I can't even, like, I'm trying to look, the numbers are so old, I can't even, they don't even have home run to fly ball rate. Like, home run to fly ball rate would be a good stat to look at, because then you can see how many more home runs was McGwire hitting on fly balls, where earlier in his career, some of those fly balls weren't going as far. And
if only the StatCast era overlapped more with
it was
amazing.
Further back, started in the 90s, but it's almost impossible to compare the two different eras because of the difference of environments.
Well, you look at Judge, like, I think this is one of the probably 5 best seasons I've ever watched as a baseball viewer.
I hate it, but I agree.
Yeah.
But okay, look at who's in second place for home runs. They're 20 home runs behind. Like that's insane.
Yeah,
and he is only 1 percentage point behind for the Triple Crown now after his 4th.
I know, it's insane. Christopher Oliver here on YouTube says Barry Bonds did it with when Skoal was still legal too. It wasn't the steroids, it was the chew.
Well, I mean, Bonds was a Hall of Famer before he did steroids. Like he already had like 12 years in the bank where he put up elite numbers.
And I think he had 3 or 4 MVPs before that too, before steroids.
Yeah. So I mean, what Judge is doing this season is absolutely remarkable. He is light years ahead of any other hitter in baseball this season.
So
not named Albert Pujols.
in 2001, when Barry Bonds had the most home runs in a season at 73, Sammy Sosa was in second at 64. So that's less than 10 home runs difference. Whereas Barry Bonds is going to have the most home runs by 20.
That wasn't even Barry Bonds' season.
No, it wasn't.
Arguably, no. Like, it's how ridiculous it is.
Well, this is even with the dead balls at the start of this season, too.
Yeah,
right?
dead ball season, too.
Well, I mean, the thing a lot of people overlook, though, is like Aaron Judge is massive.
He is.
That's a large man. Like,
I've stood next to him on more than one occasion.
He makes you Carlos Stanton look small in some instances.
So I mean, like that, like genetically, he hit the lottery. He is built to hit home runs. But he is still, I think, like I said, this is one of the 5 best seasons I've ever seen by a hitter. And the other 4, probably Barry Bonds.
Joel, do you have anything to add here, bud?
I think this season kind of like what all those other home run seasons did was make it so that when we talk about the home run race, we have to talk about this. We have to talk about, is this record a record? And this one, we don't. This one is, he's just a great baseball player going out and playing great baseball, and that's it. And nothing is fueling him except next year's contract and going out there and trying to be, so it's a home run race where we can take pride in it again, instead of being embarrassed forever because of the record that's most important being sullied by a generation. I don't know. It's nice that we can actually enjoy it again and that fans can go out for those games. And I'm going to get that ball. That ball means something because it was almost made like it's almost in a place at 73 where it's out of range of any, human being to get to 74. How could you get to 74 home runs? But, Judge is going and doing something that 3 players have done properly in the history of the game. So whatever it is, it's subjective to the viewer and what it means to them, right? So I'm going to hold it right up there with Maris and Babe.
Love it. Great way to wrap that topic up. We'll move along here. Did we wish to get into the fat shaming Twitter tweet and Alek Manoah and Alejandro Kirk? Or do we want to just... I mean, I know this has probably been beat to death, so it's up to you guys. If anyone has something to say about it, feel free to pipe up, but we can move along.
Nah, fuck that guy.
I had an
Basically.
interaction with him.
Oh, great.
Oh,
Dish!
Marty York was tweeting at Rob Longley and the whole Blow Jays nonsense, which just sounds so immature from a grown man,
Yes.
right? Like, just
Sounds immature from a child, but yes.
you can be like, if you want to decide you're going to be the negative dude and you're going to make your reputation on that now, you go right ahead. But using terms like Blow Jays just it just negates your point, right? So anyways, he had tweeted something at Rob Longley, and I said something like, it must be exhausting being you. And he ended up calling me irrelevant and a groupie, which I like the expressions. Thank you. I appreciate it, because that's exactly how I felt. And so then I just tweeted, and it wasn't at Marty York. I didn't tag him. I just tweeted, imagine being Marty York and calling someone else irrelevant. And this Matthew guy who doesn't follow me, I don't follow him, jumped in on my conversation somehow. I don't know how he even saw my tweet unless he's sitting there searching Twitter for Marty York mentions. And basically said to me, how dare I call him irrelevant? And, was I not aware of his stellar career? And, oh, by the way, I've never even heard of you, was what this Matthew guy said to me. And I said, well, you know what?
Marty York defender.
I said, I've never heard of you either. And which I hadn't, and I wasn't trying to be rude. I don't even know who you are. And he's like, oh, that's such a shallow, comeback, exactly what I would expect. And so I replied and I said, okay, well, here's not a shallow comeback. I was called an irrelevant groupie. And I really doubt that Marty York would have called a man a groupie. I just doubt it, right? I saw that as misogynistic and sexist. And hence my comment that you then jumped in on. And he continued to defend Marty York. So when it then turned out to be this guy who was body shaming Kirk, and it sort of, I was like, oh, yeah.
What blew me away about the whole interaction, and so Dalchmaris says, Jen, what if Matthew is Marty's burner account? LOL.
Well, it isn't,
because this is the one thing,
because he deleted all of his social media, I guess.
So this is the one
Job
thing
done.
about this interaction from Matthew Ross, is that he had so many opportunities to walk back what he said and just doubled down on it. Now listen, I read his apology. It's actually a good apology. Now that he's put it out after
paragraph.
If he had stopped after the first paragraph,
yeah.
Yep.
it was a good apology. Making
Say
it
too much.
just kept going and
oh,
going.
I didn't think it would possibly be interpreted that way. That's bullshit. Especially given all of his subsequent replies to people. Absolute garbage.
Also, the other thing that kind of bothered me a little bit about how much this got blown up is that Alejandro Kirk's in good shape. Like, he's not that huge tub of lard that everyone's kind of like portraying him to be. Like, he maybe drinks a few too many beers for a 23-year-old who's playing professional ball, but it literally, like, it's his body type. And yeah, there's a lot of talk about it, and in an athletic way of looking at it as a catcher, of course there's going to be this blowback on his body.
I
but
mean,
like, go ahead, Jenny. Sorry.
He goes out and he does his job.
Yeah.
Right? So that's the end of the discussion in and of itself. If the Blue Jays organization has an issue with his weight, if they do,
Which they might, but
then that's up to them to address, as they did with Vlad. That is an organizational thing that the rest of us don't need to be privy to. But beyond that, Alejandro Kirk goes out and does his job.
He's the best
So
hitting catcher in
why
baseball.
comment beyond
yes,
that?
thank you, Lewis.
I don't
Agreed.
care how heavy you are. If you're doing that, you're good.
Yeah, it was the fact that he said that the Alejandro, like them showing off Alejandro Kirk running was bad for baseball. I guess getting 1.8 million votes and starting in the All-Star game is bad for baseball.
Must be.
Agreed.
Like,
The only person who had more votes was Aaron Judge.
Like, honestly, I mean,
loves
I'm
him.
not like the fat shaming stuff, the body shaming stuff is awful, all that. But that aside, just such a terrible take. Like,
Everyone
how can
loves
you
him.
not love Alejandro Kirk? And you can tell his teammates celebrate his victories because maybe he's a little, he's not your prototypical body in baseball. Like,
yeah, if this was Bradley Zimmer that he was fat shaming and Bradley Zimmer was big, less people would defend it. But Kirk's one of those likable people in baseball. Like, it was stupidity. And
It was so unnecessary.
and kudos to Alec Manoa for actually taking the
Yeah,
time
good stuff,
and
Alec.
demolishing that man.
The
Like-
thing I liked about Alec was, like, he said he didn't even really want to address it, but this guy had a platform. This guy has a radio show on TSN radio.
Yeah.
8 a.m. on a Saturday morning, prime slot. But I mean, he does have a platform, and that's why Manoa would, like, if I tweeted something, he doesn't give a shit, whatever. But this guy works in, like, legitimate media, collects a paycheck for these takes, and
Absolutely.
I don't even know how he has a job. Honestly, I don't know how. Like, who is he going to talk to now? What pro athlete's going to go in there and be like, oh yeah, that asshole who shamed Kirk? Yeah, I'll talk to him.
Well,
Like,
the guy.
Christopher Oliver on YouTube says, to quote Billy Bean, "We are not selling jeans here," which sums it up beautifully.
Oh, that's where I was gonna go. Was that big speech?
Of course you were, Joel.
We're looking for
Sorry to
Fabio.
jump all over it.
Selling
Yeah.
jeans, he also, like, you gotta love it because Manoa and Kirk were battery mates at the All-Star game together, right? 3 punch outs there at the All-Star game. Like, what more do you want out of a 23-year-old?
It's pronounced punchies, Joel.
Punchies, that's true. I got to get my vernacular down. It's 2022. What am I doing? You look at the Mount Rushmore of baseball, and Babe Ruth is the guy that represents this sport, right? There is no body type for hand-eye coordination. There isn't. You can be 5'8", 260, or you can be 6'7", 280, and you can be a monster in this sport. You can be dominant. There is no body type for being able to see that ball, being able to put the bat on it, and the game will prove that till the end of time, that you could be the most athletic human being that's ever existed, but that doesn't allow you the ability to hit that ball. So if you think that that's what if your mindset of baseball is body type, then you don't know baseball.
You're stuck in 2001.
And I don't give a flip about sprint speed, because when you haul ass from first to home, right?
Yeah.
To give your team that run, right? I don't care how fast or slow you do it. That's completely irrelevant.
It's also fun. It was funny that he was the one body shaming, but let's be real. Alejandro Kirk would probably tear the floor with him in a sprint.
Probably.
Well, this is what I thought was funny. So, and one of my favorite accounts on Twitter is Chris Black with Sportsnet, producer there at Down to Black. He's always got great little
side
stuff.
by side.
Yep.
And he did the overlay of the speed of them running, right? And it was funny. like, it was really funny because where Zimmer was literally at home plate when Kirk was rounding third. And I laughed, but I also laughed because I would be just as far behind Kirk as Kirk was behind Zimmer if you were to like do an overlay of all three of us. And I'm just like, oh man, like Kirk is moving. Like, to say Kirk's not fast, like he's not in comparison to a Bradley Zimmer. But I love watching Kirk. I love watching Vladdy when they're rounding third and just giving her.
It's 5'8", he's 260. He doesn't plod though. There's a nice, there's like that guy moves. We laugh so much because we don't laugh because he's slow and big. We laugh because he's pretty fast and big, you know. So
You don't expect it.
And the progress that guy's games made this year, not just offensively, defensively, those back picks that he makes with Vladdy at first base, like he's the type of guy that you want to buy a jersey for your kid. And be like, you know, that's the type of guy that you want to support, right? And why you're gonna go after Alejandro Kirk, man? That you got some demons in your closet that you got to deal with.
Did anyone have anything else to add to Jen's topic here? Or sorry, that's not Jen's topic. That was just one we almost didn't go into. But did anyone have anything else to add there?
Poetic justice.
Okay, before we go back to topics here, I want to touch on really quickly the fact that the Los Angeles Dodgers are the best team in baseball. They won 100 games just yesterday. I think they hit 100, which is the fastest that someone has hit 100 wins in 21 years. Garth, when you look at the Los Angeles Dodgers, is there anyone in that NL that you think can go head-to-head with them in a 7-game series?
Oh man, I think the Mets have kind of like hit their peak.
Pitching wise, they might be able to, right?
Yeah, maybe. You know, you got DeGrom and Scherzer and like yeah, they're a good team, but like no one's talking about Atlanta. Atlanta, like they just need to like get healthy and play the way they played last year. Like they're still a scary team. I would not want to play them.
Yeah. Atlanta, the thing about Atlanta is it's just sad now because Ozzie Albies played 2 games and now he's back on the IL because he fractured his finger. But the fact that Atlanta has got so much out of rookies, Michael Harris came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Vaughn Grissom, Spencer Strider, and then just add on top of it Austin Riley, Matt Olson, Ronald Acuna Jr., who barely gets talked about anymore because I guess, but he's still really good. And they probably match up, I think, the best. Yeah, like Garth said, they match up the best with the Dodgers because the Dodgers pitching, it's not, their starting pitching anyway, it's not as good as people think it is right now because they don't have Walker Buehler's gone. Kershaw is okay right now. And then there's Arias. But then Tony Gonsolin, he's maybe around still. I don't know if he's still on the IL.
Tony Gonsolin had an incredible season, but he's just coming off the IL now, and they're talking like he's not going to have time to ramp up back to starting, and will probably wind up being relegated to the bullpen.
With the Dodger starters, it's all a matter of health, and I think that they have to continue to catch. Max Muncy and Cody Bellinger have to step up even further in the playoffs because they've. This is probably like a big hot take. The Dodgers have been heavily relying on Trey Turner, Freddie Freeman, and Mookie Betts the entire season as far as offense. And then you add your
I mean, if you have to rely on 3 guys.
Yeah, if you have to rely on 3 people, that'd be the best 3 to rely on. But then you're getting contributions from Will Smith. But every day they're basically putting out Joey Gallo's in there most days. Cody Bellinger, who fell off a cliff, I guess. Max Muncy's finally starting to get it back. So their hitting is coming back up together while their pitching is still very shaky. And I think Atlanta's just been that consistent. They're now hitting their stride where all of their pitching is there. They go 5 deep in their rotation. Their bullpen is the thing that scares me because we haven't talked about it enough. Kenley Jansen has blown a lot of saves recently. Like it's ridiculous. He's usually rock solid, but he's blown a lot of saves in Atlanta, and I don't know how they still continue to throw him out there because after the Seattle game where he gave up the 2 home runs, when Brian Snitker was asked if he'd get more save opportunities, he goes, "Well, he leads the league in saves," and even though he's blown 5 of his last 7. Like it's been ridiculous. But yeah, if Kenley Jansen can at least be kind of like Kenley Jansen, they pose the best chance.
Lewis, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the Dodgers and if when it comes to the division series, if there's anyone out of those wild card teams that can play them, that can compete with them for 5 games. I know you got to play the games. Obviously, this is all speculation.
If the Dodgers aren't representing the National League in the World Series, it's a failure of the season. This is one of the greatest rosters it's crazy. Here are the leaderboards, but in ERA, like this is starting pitching. We're just talking about starting pitching. Their starting pitching has a 2.71 ERA. The next highest is Houston with 3. That is insane. Their hitting has a team 122 WRC plus, which is 7 points higher than second place in St. Louis at 115.
Wow.
It's insane. The roster, Gavin Lux, Trey Turner, Freeman's putting up a 6.64 season, which is higher than Mookie Betts, and he plays first. Tyler Anderson is good this year. They got freaking, what's his name? Heaney is doing well for them this year. And Baseball America has their farm system as number 2 in baseball. That organization is built to win for the next century. It blows my mind. It's one of the greatest organizations in sports.
Yeah, they're number 2. Their prospects are number 2 in baseball, and they gave up their top 2 last year to get Max Scherzer and Trey Turner, and they're still number 2. It's ridiculous.
Freddie Freeman's signing seemed almost like a embarrassment of riches redundancy when they did it, and now to watch what he has done in 2022, like sure wish Carlos Varga was a little more correct on that one.
She was right on a lot more things.
Right?
Jose Ramirez is still a Guardian.
Yes, Jose Ramirez, yes.
Still a Guardian, even though he was apparently 5 minutes away from being a Blue Jay, which...
All right, gang. We're getting down to the last 30 minutes here, and we do want to touch on everyone's topic. Lewis, do you want to kick us off with another topic here?
Yeah, I was just going to say, Game 7 of the World Series, what's your lineup?
Ooh.
Who's pitching? What's your lineup? Who's coming out of the pen first? What are we doing?
For the Jays.
For the Jays, Game 7.
Not for the Dodgers.
Not for the Dodgers.
Manoah. Okay, starting.
Yeah.
Springer, Vlad, Bo, Chapman.
Kirk.
No, I'm going Chapman, Kirk, Teo, Lourdes, Cavan. Who am I missing?
A catcher.
Jansen.
Jansen.
DH.
Yeah. Or well, no, because Manoah, Kirk could be catching Manoah, so
yeah.
But maybe I put Jansen as a DH because when I put Merrifield.
And who's first out of the pen?
Depends on the
First
score.
pen. I don't know. Probably Romano because Manoah's going 8.
Oh, it's going 8. Yeah.
Well, I think in Game 7, the nice thing with that scenario is that you definitely have access to whoever pitched in Game 5 and Game 4, right? So you got Ross Stripling back there, maybe Gosman, depending on who pitched Game 6. I don't know, but I mean, we have watched Max Scherzer do crazy things. We've watched Clayton Kershaw do crazy things. We've watched, those big studs. Madison Bumgarner is a great example of a guy who started twice and then still closed the game in Game 7 or whatever. So I think that Game 7, you're throwing everything at the wall. Jen, what are you lining up there? Who's your first out of the pen? I know it's all situational, but who are you looking to in Game 7?
I was just really thrown off by a Twitter response to me by a self-identified incel.
At least they're honest,
You might need to come back to me.
The honesty.
You might need to come back to me.
Yeah.
I'll go next. I'll go next, I guess.
Yes, Connor, hop in here.
I'll start with the lineup because I think I'll pretty much go with Garth's entire lineup, except I will want the most optimal defensive lineup out there. So I would actually DH Vlad and put Cavan at first and then have Espinal in at second.
Okay.
So that, you take Vlad's defensive ability at first, but you put Espinal's at second and you have Cav there too. And then obviously Manoah would pitch because you're psychotic if you don't say Manoah. And then I think first out of the pen.
Is it Bass or Garcia?
Oh, I would say Bass out of the pen first. And then I would, if you have to say Manoah goes five innings, which is you go Bass on a perfect world, I think you go Bass, Meza, depending on if it's a lefty, and then you go Garcia, Romano in a perfect world. But that's obviously not going to be the case. And knowing John Schneider, you'll see Simber for 2 innings in that game just because he loves using Adam Simber. Like,
I mean, for the righties in Game 7, if we're seeing anything other than Garcia, Bass, and Romano, something has gone terribly wrong. Like, those are the three I want to see. I don't want to see anyone else. Tim Mays is situationally, depending on the lefty. I'm fine with that. And then it better damn well be Manoah going at least 4 or 5. If we've got to see a Gosman or something like that come out of there, I'd way rather that than start to, like, talk about the Simbers and Phelps of the world. Not that they have not been great for this bullpen, but we're talking Game 7 of the World Series. Joel, do you have any other different opinions here?
I'm just saying that I'd probably DH Kirk, just because I want that contact hitter in the lineup. And then the bullpen would be, if Phelps in the 6th, then
This was a fun topic,
Bass
Lewis.
7th, and then Jimmy Garcia in there.
Are you DHing Kirk rather than having him catch Manoah?
Yeah, I probably want Danny. I want Danny catching. I love him behind the plate, and I feel like that's probably Kirk catches Manoah really, really well, but I want Danny's kind of leadership in that lineup.
The thing that might mess this up too is that we don't really know how Game 1 starts, right? Like, in a perfect world, obviously Game 1 starts with Manoah. You get Game 4 out of him, and then you can go him on short rest in Game 7. But who knows, right? Like, if the ALCS goes 7 games and Manoah's in Game 7 of the ALCS, and then you're starting with Gosman and Stripling, then Manoah takes Game 3. Mind you, I guess you can massage Manoah in there to Game 7, eh?
Yeah. If we started that whole lineup, right now, everyone in that lineup has a WRC plus above 100. So
Wow.
That's pretty impressive.
Very cool.
We just
Great topic.
That was a really good topic. We just need to keep praying that Manoah's arm does not fall off in the next couple of weeks.
We all agree that Stripling goes Game 3 in the wildcard series over Barrios, right?
Yes. We talked about that. In fact, how do you feel about this, Lewis? I even said Stripling Game 2 and then go Gosman for Game 3.
Why not go Stripling Game 1 and then just have Manoah Game 2, Gosman Game 3, lock it down at the end of the series.
I love it. All right, let's move along here. Let's do another topic here. Garth, would love to hear what you brought to the table today.
All right. I think we all agree that some players that we love on this team won't be here next year, right? I think we can all kind of agree on that. There's going to be some kind of a change.
Mm-hmm.
We have 3 starting catchers. Fuck,
Marino.
marry, kill.
I thought you were going to do that.
Like, who do we start? Who do we bench? And who won't be with the team next year?
Moreno's gone.
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow, I was just honestly, you know what? It's so funny, and I love that you jumped in there, Lewis and Jen, and mentioned that, because if you asked me this question 2 months ago, I was very much on the trade. You trade Alejandro Kirk and you go with Jansen and you go with Moreno. But my opinion on that has switched. Number one, just because Kirk is incredible. As a prospect, he has panned out in every possible way. Even if he doesn't get in any better shape and his body is as it is and it breaks down over time, he's going to be good until he's 28. Like, yeah, there's concerns, but I mean, look at what he's doing. I love Jano. I think that he calls an incredible game. I know framing is a little bit of an issue for him, but framing's not even going to matter in a year or two, so who cares, right?
Okay, well.
And then when you look at Moreno, he's unproven. You never know with these top prospects if they're going to pan out or not.
Okay, but here's some pros and cons, okay? Jano's 27. He's a free agent in 2025. Starts arbitration next year. Kirk's 23, hits free agency in 2027. Moreno, clock hasn't even started yet.
Yeah.
So we don't know. Jano, it's got pretty great power for a catcher. Like, if he's healthy, he could hit 25 bombs. Kirk, one of the best contact hitters in baseball. It's going to hover around 300. Doesn't strike out much. Gabriel Moreno is a freak athlete. He's a catcher that could steal 20 bases next year if he had playing time. So, I mean, like, and you have to look at, like, trade value. Like, Alejandro Kirk, his trade value. Imagine what you could get back for a 23-year-old all-star catcher who hits 300.
Ohtani.
Like, there are 29 other teams who would love Alejandro Kirk.
Yeah.
And there's probably 29 teams besides Baltimore that would probably like Gabriel Moreno. And Jano, like, there's a lot of contending teams who are looking for that veteran presence behind the plate who could, would love to have a power hitting catcher. So, I mean, I was kind of shocked that everybody was just like, yep, Moreno, gone.
Okay. I am going to step in here and just go to the YouTube comments because Christopher Oliver does bring up an interesting point. He says, with this roster, we need a utility guy who can catch or play some other positions like third, especially if you look at how backed up the DH position is. Does this is a truth, and it's a good point. Does this change anyone's mind? Like, honestly, whatever this front office does, I'm kind of all right with.
They had Moreno practicing in the outfield the other day.
Yeah, center field.
Center field, not just a corner. Center.
Yeah,
he doesn't have to be a catcher. I mean, we can keep him.
Yeah,
but we can't keep him as catcher if we're keeping Jano and Kirk.
Yeah.
So in this modern day era of baseball, where we're looking like we have an Ohtani, we're accepting of letting a player play beyond what our confinement concepts of what their capabilities are, right? When you looked at a guy like Russell Martin, who had the ability to play third base and potentially second base, as well as catch, are we at a time in baseball where we're able to have Vasho, right? We've got baseball players who are capable of catching and being a consistent ball player at another position. And is that what we would? Is that Moreno? Like, can Moreno be? I agree. I think we talked about that very beginning of the season, that he could get time at third base. He could get time at the corner outfield, and then you catch 50 times a year, and then 3 years from now, when the situation changes, maybe Danny Jansen moves on, then 50 games becomes 90 games. Like, you're in a situation where you don't have to catch full out now, but 3 years from now you might be 25 and catching a full load. So maybe you do keep all three. I don't know. It's interesting.
That's kind of where I wanted it to go. I think Moreno is going to be spending a lot of time this offseason figuring out where he can play and be an okay defender outside of catcher. I think the Jays have to. They cannot, like, what a just embarrassment of riches. Like, we have three of the best catchers in baseball, and we can only keep two. Like, one of them, I think we'd be silly not to try Moreno somewhere in the infield or in the outfield.
I thought they were going to trade Kirk at the deadline simply because his value was so high that point, right? And I thought if they were going to make more of a push than they did, that he was going to be gone. I know that teams had interest in Moreno for very good returns. Which is why I'm inclined to say that it's Moreno who gets traded in the offseason, just in terms of what might be the return back.
So quick wrinkle in this, and I know, Lewis, you touched on it. It's impossible to decide or even guess what Angels management is going to do this offseason. I mean, if there's ever been an organization that can screw up any situation thrown their way, it is without a doubt the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. However, if Shohei Ohtani is on the table, obviously 29 teams are making pitches, how much do you want to see the Jays go all in if there's a contract attached to that trade? Because that's my guess, is if Shohei Ohtani is going to be traded, there's going to be some sort of deal worked out for a long-term extension afterwards. So, number one, do you think the Jays should go all in? Because I know, Lewis, you kind of put it in the group chat here on YouTube. You were like, Moreno, Teoscar, and all of our prospects for Ohtani. If there is a long-term contract involved in this, and it can be done, is there any price too high, guys? Jen, what are your thoughts? I know we're getting very speculative now, by the way.
I don't think there'd be a long-term deal in it
No?
because we're on the East Coast. It's too far from Japan's time zone, which is something he was very adamant about when he wanted to come to the MLB. So,
Yeah.
Do you think he cares about winning now, though? Now that he's spent enough time in
he
LA?
knows it
Go to the
sucks.
Mariners.
Or the Dodgers.
Sorry, Connor.
Shohei Ohtani on the Dodgers. It's my nightmare.
That's not-
And they give up.
that's
And they give up
illegal.
nobody. Like,
Okay, well, put him in pinstripes, and that's my nightmare. But yeah,
I mean, it's an imaginary scenario, right?
Yes.
Because you're imagining that he's available and you're imagining that there's a long-term deal attached to it. Like those
Yeah.
are the parameters of this
course.
scenario, right? So then if that's the situation,
imaginary scenarios, yes.
right? Then is there a cost that's too big? Or are you trading? Who are you giving up? Are you giving up Manoah and Moreno and
I mean, geez.
Maybe?
The wrinkle is the 1 year left
Yeah.
because that sways it a lot. If there was two, it's like definitely it starts with Manoa because it's one. It's not Soto.
Lewis, do you do Ohtani for 1 year for Moreno, Teoscar, and Tiedemann?
Yeah,
Joel?
I'd probably do that.
Well, and then you spend that year courting him and giving him everything that he could possibly want so that it's not 1 year, then yeah.
The
Because
Jose
that's-
Barrios.
this is the most like I know there's other sports that are like more, in public eye and in basketball and whatever, soccer, but this is the athlete, the ball player of this era. Like 100 years from now, they're going to talk about his exploits. So why wouldn't, if you're going to empty the bank for anybody, you're emptying it for a 29-year-old god who will be able to throw 101 till he's 37. The athleticism that this man possesses will transcend to his pitching. He'll probably be able to pitch well into his 40s. Like this, when have we ever seen a pitcher this athletically gifted, right? Like it's, you do it. He's once in a life.
And think of how much money Rogers would be raking in.
Oh,
Like
my
you think,
God.
you
Oh my
think we
God.
see Vladdy's face a lot on Sportsnet?
I would buy every version
they'll
of the
just have
Jays
a
jersey
photo.
with his
Yeah,
Up in the
me too.
corner. They'll just have a photo of Ohtani up in the corner of every Sportsnet channel all the time, 24 hours a day.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
like an Ohtani can.
WestJet
because-
will have direct flights to Japan.
Yeah,
It'll-
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like he would change.
You shift Canadian infrastructure to get him.
oh,
Yeah,
he would-
yeah. Like he'd be the biggest athlete in Toronto history.
it'd be Juan Soto. It'd be Juan Soto times 10.
It would be the Kawhi Leonard trade.
that,
Like it would be that major.
Ohtani
No,
makes
but it would-
the
it would
Kawhi
be-
Leonard trade look.
Yeah, you're right. You're right,
Kawhi
Connor.
Leonard
Yeah.
has the personality of a wet dish rag. Like,
A real Mike
being,
Trout, if you will.
Yes, him being awkward was the best part, but it was very awkward. Like,
yeah, like with Ohtani, he's smiling and doing goofy shit all the time. He is intensely marketable.
Mhm.
And if Toronto could get him with the power of the media that Rogers has backing that, like they could offer him 50 million a season. And it like
It'd
it would be a
bargain.
bargain
Yep.
for what
Yep.
they could make off of Ohtani.
Absolutely.
A $500 million for a decade. That how much money you make off Ohtani for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
There's almost nothing you could pay him that you wouldn't get back.
Every third night, you're the main story on sports, right? Like
Yeah.
every third night,
Yeah.
he's doing
Now,
something
now-
that has never been done before.
The MLB cares about you more. Like Toronto's
Yeah.
always in the back
Yeah.
a little bit. Now we have Shohei Ohtani. It's like It's
You
endless.
get an all-star game. You like more
Yeah,
things.
you get
I
a
do
lot of
think we
balls.
get too many Apple games now. Oh
Yeah.
man.
Oh my god.
Ohtani.
We
Fuck,
had
we're on
five-
there twice a week.
We had 5 this year. We're gonna have 20 if he comes here. Like,
So the last thing to talk about here before we go to and get the last topics from Connor and Joel, I think, are left, right?
yes.
And this is on while we're talking Ohtani. Obviously, Judge is doing historic things. We talked about what an offensive catalyst he's been for the Yankees all year long. The chase for 61 home runs to beat Maris. He's going to do it, and it is unbelievable. But even just, what was it, 2-3 days ago, we watched Ohtani pitch 7 innings, get an RBI, score a run, and beat the Mariners 3-1, basically single-handedly. Is Ohtani still getting votes for MVP, or is Judge running away with this? Jen, thoughts?
Based on what I see on Twitter from other markets, Ohtani is absolutely getting votes for MVP. I don't think it is a complete runaway for Judge, and it's such a difficult thing to compare, right? Like what Ohtani is doing, he's even better than last year, but Judge is doing something we've also we've never seen, right? So, I mean, I don't even know how you compare the two seasons. I would almost like it's unfortunate you can't just say, we have 2 MVPs this season or something. I don't even know.
It's almost like you need a different term for the player who plays the best and the player who is most valuable. I don't think that we can disagree that Judge is the most valuable player to his team this season, but Ohtani is playing the way that no human being has ever played. So they're 2 different things. Like, and there needs, and I always understood that the argument that the most valuable player makes the playoffs, right? Like, it's not always the truth, right? Like, last year it wasn't. He was a unanimous MVP without being on in the playoffs. But for the most part, you want your MVP playing on a team that wins means something, as opposed to being so out of it that it's just your own singular success that's on display. But that's kind of why you almost need to say that this player is the most valuable and this player had the best season. And those kind of being different things. Sometimes they can be the same.
Yeah.
But this is almost where they're not.
That would be ideal because the Yankees don't win the division without Judge this season, right?
Did they even make the playoffs without Aaron Judge?
If you look at their WAR, Judge just went over 10 WAR today.
Yeah.
So you take 10 wins away from the Yankees, they're probably still a playoff team, but I mean, they're not in first place anymore. Ohtani has about 8 wins. If you took those 8 wins away, the Angels would still be dog shit. So it doesn't really. He hasn't factored into the team being like he could be as valuable as he wants. He would have to put up a 40 WAR for them to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
So
through no fault of his own, though.
No,
that's
it's
the worst
not.
part about it, right?
No.
It's got nothing to do
Exactly.
with him.
I think Aaron Judge, like, he is so far ahead offensively. Like, he is the leader in basically every offensive category. And he is probably going to win a triple crown too. And I mean, Ohtani's amazing, but I think it just needs to be it needs to be Judge this year.
Yeah, it's like the value of his performance. It's the most valuable player, right? So every time he performs, it's literally a value. Whereas, like I said,
I saw a good point by
so the value isn't going to the playoffs. Isn't that the ultimate value? Isn't the ultimate value winning a World Series, right? So, and then maybe Ohtani will move, and he'll go, well, I'll go to a team where I can win an MVP again because I'm winning. So
I saw a good point by Eno Saris. It's the argument that some people bring up when the war is close between Judge and Ohtani is the roster spot that Ohtani saves. But Saris brought up the point that the roster spot that he's saving on the Angels is so unvaluable it doesn't mean anything. The extra roster spot the Angels are getting, they're getting no value out of that extra spot because they're so bad.
Yeah.
So if you went to us, like Moreno isn't on the roster, right? Like that's a valuable person that doesn't have room. Well, that can now have room on the roster. It's
Yeah.
he's on a really bad team and it sucks.
All right, let's get to these final topics. Connor, what do you got for us, bud?
Well, mine, it's interesting because today we got some news regarding a former Blue Jay. David Price is going to retire after this season.
Oh, wow, I didn't hear that. Very cool.
He's apparently supposed to retire after this season.
He's not. He made a statement saying that was false. He hasn't
Never mind.
decided
All right. Well, my topic still involves around retirement. And if there was the one play, who was the one player for you guys, could be on the Blue Jays or not, that when they retired, you actually were not sad about it? Because I'll give an example. For me, it was Prince Fielder. The day that we found out that he couldn't play anymore due to his neck, it hurt because he was one of my favorite non-Blue Jays of all time. And so I just wanted to get your thoughts on who was a person that when they retired, you were like, I'm not going to say distraught, but like pissed off and mad that they were gone.
I love this question. I'm going to step in and just say that when Matt Stairs retired, I wouldn't say that I was upset or mad and it was probably time for him to retire, but he is one guy that when he retired, I was like, man, I'm going to miss that guy just being in baseball. He was such a interesting role being played in a game where it wasn't a role that existed very often, just this you hear it all the time, professional hitter. But truly, Matt Stairs was, right? Just a guy who would come on off the bench as a lefty, was always good at pinch hitting. Yeah, even when he played for the Jays, honestly, the leadership and the role he played and just how instrumental he was at the time, even though at the time, obviously, the Jays sucked. But yeah, Matt Stairs would be my guy. Jen, do you have a retiree that stands out to you?
One of, if not my favorite player of all time is Dustin Pedroia.
Nice.
And it was sad, the injuries that he suffered towards the end there and sort of the, that labored end for him. But when he finally decided to call it a day, that hit me.
Joel?
Griffey retiring made me sad, but he should have retired probably a little bit sooner. But I'll go with Jeter because I grew up with Jeter, and I'll go with Ortiz too because Ortiz ended on such an amazing year. He went out so on top, one of the best offensive seasons ever by a 40-year-old, and he could have kept playing the game and still been amazing probably for a couple more seasons. But and what he was for the game, what he was for Boston after the disaster at the Boston Marathon and all of that stuff, it was really sad to see a guy who loved the game so much, always brought a smile to the ballpark, and just to see a guy like that go, I guess I'd say.
I know we'll get to the rest of you. I just want to quickly touch on YouTube here. Taco Time says, best retirement ever, Steve Pearce, World Series MVP, peace. Obviously, he played another year after that, but get his sentiment. Christopher Oliver says, when Tony Fernandez retired, that was sad. Yeah. Garth, do you got someone who retired that stands out to you?
Well, I'm going to shout out Jack Jolly Olive, David Wright. That was a really sad one. Guy was great, but, just injuries caught up to him. But I think mine was Griffey. He just, watching him for a decade in Seattle and the way he played, he was just perfect. He was a perfect ball player for 10 years. And then he went to Cincinnati, missed home, and I respect it. But, man, he just could not stay healthy in Cincy. And it was sad to see him, labor those last couple of years. And, I know he went back to Seattle for a cup of coffee, and they carried him off the field and all that. I get that. But just to see a guy that Like, talk about Judge being built to play baseball. Ken Griffey was built to play baseball. He was perfect. And to see a guy that is perfect just fade into mediocrity, that was tough to watch. And I was not a fan of that.
Lewis?
Well, I'm not really old enough to see some of those greats retire, but I think for me it was probably Troy Tulowitzki. I remember just loving him and watching him play all the time, but shame it ended a bit early.
It is kind of a bummer with those guys that were just generational talents that you could just tell if they could have stayed healthy. You know, like truly Griffey is a great example. Bo Jackson, you know, like Tulo's a great example too. Yeah, he absolutely was. Joel, did we get yours? We did, right?
Yeah, Ortiz.
Okay. Joel, we've got 5 minutes here. Let's get to your topic. What do you want to talk about, bud?
They talked about yesterday how Baltimore's ERA dropped 2 runs from last season, which is a lot to do with.
I saw that. Yeah,
with the they're like, don't get me wrong, their pitchers are a lot better than they were over the past 3-4 years, but I feel like something that had to do with that was their dimension shift with that outfield and how they push back those outfield fences. With all of the massive changes that are happening at Rogers Center, should they be looking at ballpark design as a way to enhance winning over the next few seasons? Because you've seen Baltimore do that. You're not going to have Glaber go into Baltimore now and rip 16, 17 home runs against one singular team, right? That ballpark isn't really designed for that anymore. So with the young Jays and us moving into a winning window over the next 5-6 years, and all of those massive changes that are already going on with Rogers Center, would you think of altering the dimensions to play up the team or enhance a specific aspect of the team over the next, like for example, that you've got Barrios, Manoah, and Gosman locked up. You've got that as a part of your team for the next 5 years. So do you build your outfield walls in a way to assist that core of pitchers, or maybe do you assist the hitters? I don't know. Just the way that massive decrease happened in Baltimore, I was like, fence design, you've got that control, and we're making those changes right now. Do you change the dimensions?
I love this topic. Lewis, let's start with you. When you look at the ballpark dimensions in Toronto and then watch what Baltimore did this offseason and how well it worked out for them, is this something we're going to see happen in baseball more often? Stadiums reconfigured to best highlight the team or the organization's strengths?
Probably not. I think what Baltimore did was really smart, because like 8 or 9 of their top 10 prospects are hitters, and all of those hitters except one are lefties. So it's perfect for them, and their pitchers are really good. So they're moving that wall back works perfectly for their future. Whereas for the Jays, it's tough to predict what our future is. Are we trying to bank on pitching and trying to make our pitchers do as well as possible, knowing that our lineup's always going to be good? Can you move? Is moving left field? Moving left field's bad for us because of all our righties. But then again, they're also going to be might be facing Judge for the rest of.
Yeah, we don't want to be we don't want Yankee Stadium either. Yeah.
The changes to the field, I think they've shown them, and the field does change a bit. It's a bit more wavy now. I'm not sure how it's going to affect the team, but I think the Orioles changing their stadium is the last of stadium changes you're going to see for a bit, dimension-wise. And us next year, but it's very slight.
Connor, any thoughts on this topic?
I'm for the most part, I do agree with Lewis. I don't think that ours aren't, like, from what I've seen, obviously, like, the bullpens are different now, and the fences, I don't know if the fences have gone any different in height. And the only big change is the center field fence, I think, is dropping a little bit. But other than that, there's not much change there. And yeah, to Lewis's point, I don't think our team is very right-handed heavy, as is most teams in the AL East. So are we going to move in left field to make it easier on us and the other team? And it's back to the issue of, if we had more lefties in our lineup, we could move right field in and be fine. But like, but yeah, I don't think Baltimore, that just aesthetically, that looks disgusting. Their stadium looks disgusting now. It used to like it's there's a super high weird wall in right. There's a wall that makes no sense in left that shuts out awkwardly. It's helped their team, but I don't think the reason that Baltimore will eventually continue to do well is the fact that they moved their stadium. And I don't think a lot of it all balances out anyway, because a lot of the home runs that they're taking away from many other teams, the same thing happens with their hitters. Like, for example, Trey Mancini, I think he lost 4 or 5 like 5-6 home runs that he would have had last year. Like it all balances. Yeah, Mountcastle. Mountcastle like 35 last year. Hayes, like it'll all balance out in the end. And I don't think it will be the stadium won't be the reason that they take a significant jump next year. It'll be the players themselves.
Oh yeah.
Anyone else with anything to add here?
Yeah, I was going to say this. Oh, sorry.
Oh no, go ahead. Go ahead, Jen.
I was going to say the same thing as Connor, is that, you know, if you shift things to appeal to your hitters, you're taking away from your pitchers and vice versa. So, you know, to me, the dimensions are irrelevant at that point.
I'm shocked it hasn't happened yet this year, but I'm waiting for that first player that's playing left field that runs out there and like slams into that wall that juts out. Like, how has that not happened yet?
It's wild.
It's just
like
dangerous.
That looks kind of dangerous. Like it's not like Boston, like in Fenway, where it's kind of like in and out and it's like gradual. This is like 90-degree turn right there. Like, I just don't know how. Like, I'm shocked no one's been injured yet.
Agreed. Glad it hasn't happened. Everyone's head on a spin, I guess.
Especially not one of the Blue Jays, knock on wood.
Swivel. Yeah, exactly. All right, gang. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll go around the horn here and just say our goodbyes. Garth, thanks so much for joining us, our dude. Where can we find you? You have a card YouTube channel now.
I'm everywhere now, man. I'm everywhere.
Yeah.
You find me on Twitter. You find me on Instagram. Same name. I got a YouTube channel where I just open up old packs of cards and talk nonsense. So just hit me up there.
For all of you who are big into baseball cards, follow Garth, because he's a fun follow on Twitter, and of course his new YouTube channel is a great watch. Subscribe and like. Joel, how's the movie business going, bud?
It's good. The TV series is all wrapped up. 15 episodes are shot. They're doing the editing now, so that was so much weight to have taken off my shoulders that they're not shooting that anymore.
Congratulations, by the way. Well deserved.
And then what's ridiculous is that in the last month, a pilot for another thing that I wrote started going into production. Just kind
for
of
those of you who don't know, Joel's in demand right now.
All of a sudden, I'm a hot ticket. All of a sudden, but no, it's going really well. It's got me busy, and I really can't wait to start showing you guys stuff. It's especially from Live Feed, the TV show that I've spent the last year working on. There's some really amazing scenes that I can't wait to bring on here and show everybody. So.
Can't wait to see it, my guy. Again,
Absolutely.
Congrats.
And then hey comic.
Oh, sorry, yeah, go ahead, bud.
On TikTok, you can find me there.
Yeah,
that's really fun.
Connor, the Flight Deck Podcast.
Yes,
another great Blue Jays podcast. Where can people find you, my dude?
Oh, well, me for my personal, you can find me on Twitter at TFD_Connor. And if you want to find the Flight Deck, it's YouTube, Spotify, Apple at the Flight Deck, or Twitter is at the Flight Deck _. Instagram and TikTok are the Flight Deck Pod, where we post clips from there. And yeah, it's been fun. We've done a lot of shit talking, and it's great. So like, let's hope it goes for as long as possible, with the Blue Jays going as far as they can in the playoffs. But yeah, it's been a fun ride, and I don't plan on stopping anytime soon.
Check out the Flight Deck. That's on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Lewis, good to have you back, my man. How's the number one? Congrats on what was it that the national? You're getting national coverage here. Tell us a little bit about it.
It was the Jays Academy Showcase. Right. They selected 140 players. I'm not going to be able to go though. I'm still injured. My oblique still isn't 100%, so pretty disappointed about that. But it was an honor to get picked to go to that showcase. But yeah, you can find me at jskid_RHP. I like collecting cards as well, Garth. I've seen your channel before. It's pretty sick. So yeah, thanks for having me on, guys.
Nothing but the best in the future for you, man. And we look forward to the next time you're on the show. And Jen, our stalwart, our rock, if you will. Thank you again for joining us. Where can folks find you?
I'm the least active of everybody on this panel, so I can attest to the fact that everybody here is a really great follow on whatever platform it is you want to follow them on. So if you're not, please do so. I do hope to become more active in what I'm doing, but for the time being, at least, you can find me at baseball_Jen, and that's Jen with 2 N's.
Perfect. Again, thank you, everybody. I do want to quickly say Christopher Aller piped up earlier and just said that he misses Adam, but that we all did a great job righting the ship here while he wasn't around. And then Taco Time says, I'm a burn a fat spliff and cook ribs now. Go Jays later, gang. So there you go. All right, everybody. Thanks again. Really appreciate it. Until next week, all the best. All right. So that's the show. We're still recording it on YouTube. Adam's the one who shuts things off here. So I'm going to text him to shut it off. But, all the best, guys. And go ahead and hit your end button.
Right.
Cheers.
See you guys.
Bye.
See you guys.
Hey guys.
Go on. Later.